All right. Let's see. So what we've done so far is created the print board method, which loops through the game board, which is an array of 16 underscores, and it iterates every 4. So it only loops through it 4 times. And then within each time it loops, we want to join, we take a slice of that array, so whatever the index is at, plus the 4, so it only takes a slice of 4 of the game board, and then it joins them with a separator of just an empty string. So we get something like that. You can also add a space just to make it look a little more appealing like that. Doesn't really matter. Just kind of personal preference of what you kind of want it to look like. So in the shake method, I'm going to bypass this one. I'm going to go straight into the smart Boggle board because it's going to change up our logic a little bit. So we currently implement our board without modeling dice. What we should do next is to make our game board come closer to modeling the real Boggle board. So when modeling die, it's important to conceptualize how this works in the real world. If it helps, grab some dice and toss them to see what happens. So in Boggle, there's 16 die, or there's 16 dice. Each dice has a bunch of letters on it, so you have to roll each dice or each die to get a random letter in here. So just like you would randomly roll a dice or a die with these, you'd get a random letter from this specific dice, this specific die. So with that, you could, let's see what we want to do. So right here we have, so we're still only going to have one core method, shake, on our Boggle board class. The following is a list of Boggle dice with Q representing QU. Where's Q? I don't even know if, yep, QU right there. All right. So if this is dice in our Boggle board game, whenever we create a new instance of a Boggle board, so if you go out and buy Boggle board, like the game, it comes with dice already. So we can actually include dice in our, anytime we create a new game, we can include that dice as an instance variable. So in here, we can say self.dice equals, and how do we want to store this dice of the game? We can store in an array. So go ahead.
I was thinking nested arrays.
You can do nested arrays. There's multiple ways you do it. I literally just going to copy this and then store it into a single array. So I'll do that. Something like this. Whoa. Let's see. Whoa. Like that. Oh, that doesn't work. So you can do like, and create an array.
What hotkey are you using to do that, Tom?
I'm doing Command-Shift to highlight the whole thing, Command-Shift, and then over to highlight it, and then just pressing the quotes. So Command-Shift. It's taking a long time. And now we need to include or commas. There, that should work. So now in our shake, if I actually want to do new game dot shake, invoke it, I just want to print the dice first. So print self dot dice and see what runs. So we're probably going to get this printed out first because we're invoking it and we're calling this print board method within the init. And then we're going to get shake and it's going to print the array of dice. So there we go. So I'm actually going to comment out this print board method and clear down here and execute that again. And there we got our dice right here. But now we want to grab a random letter from each die and put it in place of the game board, like right there, here, whatever. But how do we simulate the rolling of the dice? How can we do that? So if we have 16 die in our hands, or 16 dice in our hands, and we're shaking it up, and we want to like throw it out on the table and like loop through and grab a random character in each die.
You'd want to create an array that holds the indexes of each die, and then use the random, is it called a module or something, to choose dice at random.
So we can,
and then do that again for the face.
So we have create a there's a module random within Python that we can grab like a random element or a random index from this array. Is that something? Yep. So we have this array dice. How do we randomize this array? So right now it starts with A, E, A, blah, blah, blah. How do we randomize it? You said inside there's a import random module, but what's the method within the random module that randomizes this?
Random.choice, and it takes an array or anything that it can choose as an argument.
Okay, so we got random choice, Python. I'm gonna look choice. So return a random element from a non-empty sequence. Okay, we could use random.choice. But then how do we ensure that we don't include that dice or that die again? If we've already chosen it.
Pop the index of that dice that gets chosen
Off
from the dice.
Okay, we can do that. I'm going to do it a little bit different. So we have random.choice, but we also have this random.shuffle. So random.shuffle takes in an array and shuffles that array in place. So if I do if I print random.dice and I do print random.shuffle and pass in the self.dice, let's see what happens. I'm going to clear it. Oh, what happened? So it's like not doing anything. So I'm getting none. So I'm just printing here, and then I'm getting none, printing there. So random.shuffle doesn't return anything. So when I print it, it doesn't return anything. So that's why it returns none. But if I just run random.shuffle like this, it randomizes or shuffles this array in place. So if I print print self.dice again, it should be different. So here's the original array up here. And then after I shuffle it, now it's different. So if I keep on doing that, I'm going to keep getting a different. So it keeps shuffling the array. So that's how we can ensure that each die that we want initially is going to be different pretty much every time. So I'm going to shuffle all the dice array. And then I want to loop through the shuffled array and grab a random element from each die. So how do I loop through an array? By the index. For I space and enumerate. And I'm going to pass in the game board because I want to loop through, because the game board's 16 characters long and so are the dice. So I just want to make sure I'm going to print I. So I'm going to clear this. And there I'm printing, I'm essentially looping through the game board again, just like I was doing in range, but this time I'm using enumerate. And I'm not using, what is space? If I do space, I don't know what space is. Oh, it's the underline, it's the underscore. But I'm not using that space at all. So if you're declaring a variable or like space, but I'm not using this anywhere within my function or within the class, if I do an underscore before it, it's an indication to other developers that saying, okay, this element right here, I'm not using it all within the program. So I've got print self.dice again. It's going to print it 16 times, just whatever. I just wanted to see what that looked like again. But now I want to grab a random element or a random index, a random number essentially between 1 and 6. And this is going to represent a character within each die. So how do I grab a random number between 1 and 6 or 0 and 6?
You could do random dot rand int.
Okay. So what is that? Rand int, you said?
Yeah.
Rand int. So right here it says return a random integer n such that blah, 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 alias. So takes in A and B. So let's see what this looks like. And this is going to represent the letter index. So random dot rand int. I'm going to do 0 through 5. And I'm going to print letter index. Letter IDX. And see what that looks like. So 0, 3, 1, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I just want to keep doing it just to make sure. So there I've got 5. Okay. So it's inclusive of 5. So it takes in where I want to start, like a random number between 0 and 5, inclusive of 5. So including 5. Okay. But now I'm going to grab the letter from an index. So from each die. So I want to grab a letter from each die. So I can say like letter equals self.dice at whatever index I'm on, and then grab another, like the letter index. So this will grab an individual letter from each die. So let's look down here, and now let's print a letter. So if I clear the screen and run that again, there I get a random letter, L, blah, blah, blah. If I keep doing that, I keep getting different letters right here. What questions do you have about what I've just done? I could have easily done for I in range 0 through length of game board as well in place of this.
Tom, somebody earlier mentioned random.choice also as an option.
Yep.
And what I did was, instead of doing that iteration 0 through 5, I just said letter equals random.choice of each die.
Okay, so in place of this, I can do choice, a random element from a non-empty sequence. So letter equals random dot choice.
Of self.dice.
Yep. I'm gonna should comment that out.
Yeah.
So letter equals random dot choice self dot dice at I, because that will. So let's see.
So the way I wrote it is, it just I'm iterating through each die.
Yep. So that's kind of what I'm doing here.
It's on. It just pulls, but you don't have to change yours. I was just saying it kind of does the same thing.
Yep.
With
No.
that
Yeah.
choice that somebody else used also works for this same thing.
Yep. You're 100%.
Was
Yep. Sorry. Yeah. You guys are both 100% right. So I could have, in place of grabbing a random index and then accessing that index, so there's 2 lines of code here. I could do it just with 1 line of code by using that random.choice. Still outputs that same. So I'm actually going to keep random.choice just because it's 1 line of code. So we got letter, and now we're looping through the game board, but now we want to change, essentially, in place of wherever these empty underscores are, we want to replace those with this letter. So I can do self.gameboard at I. Let's just print that out. I'm going to uncomment that out, or comment that out. Down here in the terminal, I'm going to clear it, and I'm going to execute that. So we have each one of these at I. But now we want to change what that value is, equals letter, and now print dot self.gameboard at I. So if I clear that, down here in the terminal again, I'm going to execute that code. So now I just replaced the value at that index with a letter. So I'm going to delete that, just clean this up a bit. And now if I want to new game.print board and run that, I get, there you go. But in the here, step 3, so we pretty much finished this part by looping through the game board. First and shake, we're shuffling the dice in place right here. So we're just randomizing this dice array. We're looping through the game board. The game board and the dice are the same length, so they'll match up. I'm grabbing a random letter at each index of the dice as it's looping. So grabbing a random letter, and then I'm reassigning the value at this index in the game board with that letter. And that's what gives me this. What questions do you have about that? All right. Now dealing with the pesky Q, we can say our board currently prints Q instead of QU. How can we print QU instead? We can pretty much just say, hey, if a letter, well, hold on, I just want to keep running this. I want to see if I can get a Q in here. Where's a Q?
You got one.
Where'd it go? Oh, right here. Thank you. So Q, it should print QU right here. So I can say in my shake, I can say if letter equals Q, letter equals QU. So it's just reassigning the letter of Q to QU. If I can clear that, just run that. Uh-oh. Should be double equals, not assignment equals. Let's see if this works. Come on, Qs. They don't like Qs, do they? There we go. QU. All right. And that is Boggle board. What questions do you have about that
I
logic?
think you also have to add another space when you join the arrays.
Like right here.
So the QU looks nice. Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. That's just visual things. So if it's off by a little bit, that's fine. But if you went and added that space or manually added that space to all the other ones, good on you. But the grand scheme of things, it's fine right now.